person, I would like to speak in person because I want to do a what if face to face. I want to do a what if on our main character in Poppy Playtime. Because why? Because I think we have an idea of who the main character is, but I think we're just running around in circles. We're running around in circles. So I'm not even going to beat around the bush. I'm not really not. I got my notes. So yes, you try to copyright, take any of my ideas, we're going to have some problems. No, just kidding. So I have my own ideas of what if on who our main character is. And I think you know it too. But I think you guys are just going around in circles trying to beat around the bush. So let's get to it because I'm not even going to take long on this because I just want to get to the point. I just want to get to the main point of who our main character is. So, because I think I have an idea of who they are. So, before we get into who our main character is, let's go over the strengths of this main character. We know that this main character is very intelligent. We know this main character is has a critical thinking, very good problem solver. They're very familiar with Playtime Code Factory, and we know that this main character has some weaknesses. Now I'm not sure if this main character is very easy to be manipulated because, as we know, Poppy is a very horrible manipulator. Like, she's a very big, mean, though I wouldn't say mean, but big manipulator, like getting people to do what she needs to be done, what needs to be done. And I just thought the character was like a victim of it. But for all we know, maybe that person is easy to be manipulated, but I don't think that's the case though. I think the player is just going with the flow because we know that the player is there for a reason because they're determined to. I think the player is determined to like get an answer, of what's going on. I think there might be more to what we know about what the true meaning behind of what the character is there for. So, but I do know that this main character definitely thinks of themselves before others, even though I think this main character does have some empathy and care within themselves, but they definitely do think of themselves a lot before others. I definitely seen that a lot, especially in chapter 4. But and also, not as if they have a choice, but sometimes they can accept things that are very reasonable. But like I said, not as if they have a choice. But those are some of the weaknesses I've seen in the main character. So, next thing, what do we know about the main character? Well, one thing's first. We do know that the main character was an employee at Playcare. It didn't. Now here's the thing. Some of you guys were saying like this employee was been a former employee. Like this employee was like messed up, like got fired or just didn't show up. Like no. We know that this employee was an employee at Playtime Code Factory. I meant to say Playtime Code Factory, but we know this employee was an employee at Playtime Code Factory, even before the Hour of Joy happened. Like, we know this, so they wasn't fired or anything. So we know that was an employee. They're just a former employee because of what happened with the Hour of Joy, and the Playtime Code Factory was shut down. So, now some of you guys were saying that this main character was like. Was like a researcher or a scientist and was experimenting on the toys and the children, because there were times in Poppy Playtime where there were like voices and scenarios where they was like, you did this to us, like you were experimenting, like you created us. But no, because that doesn't, like, just because they said like you did this to us, like I think that they was just saying that like in more of like a metaphorically way, because I mean, yeah, we were working at Playtime Code Factory, the factory that created them. Like that doesn't mean that they partake in the experiments though, because here's the thing. If they were a researcher or a scientist, Dr. Harley Sawyer would have remembered them, but he doesn't, because even the author of the Playtime, the Play Care book orientation, PW, Dr. Harley Sawyer and PW does have a colleague acquaintance thing, because PW works closely with Dr. Harley Sawyer. So, but that's the thing. If they were a researcher or a scientist, Dr. Harley Sawyer would have catch on to who the player was immediately. But like I said, Dr. Harley Sawyer quoted in chapter 4 that he does not recognize who that player was. So we know that they had nothing to do in those departments. So maybe so that's the thing. So, but we do know that this main character was something that the prototype fears, because they were different. Why they were different? Well, because we know that this player has been someone that is not recognizable enough, as Dr. Harley Sawyer said in chapter 4. Like, they were behind the shadows. They were not noticeable enough. Like, they were just like not in the center of the stage. But also, I think this is my what if, because I have a feeling like this character knew something was up. Because when they got the letter in the beginning of chapter 1, why didn't they go to the cops? Why didn't they report it to the cops? Why didn't they report it to anyone else when they got the letter? So that's how you know the character was trying to get to the bottom of something. They were determined to get a closure, some type of closure or whatever. So, but that's all I know. That's what we know so far. So, but there's one thing I definitely want to point out is like the hour of joy thing. But I'm gonna get to the end. I'm gonna do that at the end. So like what happened during hour of joy. What was the reason that person probably did not partake in the hour of joy. So we'll get to the bottom. We'll get like past that. So now we're gonna get to the big thing, who this main character is. So I know in the past everybody was doing theories on who the main character is. Like I know game theory, the game theorists, and I know like there were other subscriber channels that were taking a go at who the main character is. And I know there was at one point in chapter 2, there was an abandoned slide that had like letters at the bottom and a thing at the top, and people were trying to figure out like who the person was. And I know some of you guys came up with the name Jamie B. Honey, but that doesn't sound right. That definitely does not sound right, because if that was the case, I mean, there would have been hints, there would have been like something along the way, for us to know that. But here's the thing though, like I don't think that was the case, because I mean, yeah, there was an abandoned slide, but looking at those letters at the bottom and the thing at the top, like, what if we were looking at it wrong, though? Like, what if we were? Because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, I mean, what if that wasn't intentional? So, as I was looking at something that might have stand out, something that might give me a what if on who our main character is. And that's when I seen something. I found something that may have gave me an idea of who our main character might be. And I'm going to also play this for you guys to listen to it, because this might give you an understanding too of where I'm coming from. So as I was playing and also listening in and watching of Poppy Playtime, like all the chapters, I was also listening to the tapes too, just to get a clue at something that stands out. And I know like you guys were saying like Leith Pierre might be the character, or Elliot Ludwig might be the character. My thing is, if any of them was the characters, First of all, the experiments would have recognized them immediately and took them out. Dr. Harley Sawyer would have immediately know them and took them out because Dr. Harley Sawyer hated Leith Pierre. Man, imagine that. Imagine that. But no, if that's the case, then they would have been taken out. But anyways, so there was one particular thing that I came across, and I had to stop and think for a second. I'm like, wait, am I seeing this right? Am I just listening to it right? There was particular tapes that I was playing and listening to, and I found something very peculiar about those tapes, because those tapes that were being played, and as we were watching them, those tapes were playing were already took place in the places we've been at already. Now, I don't know if that could be like a hint, giving us hints at who our character is, but I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna give you guys more clues, and then I'm gonna play the tapes, and you tell me during those tapes of who the character might be, because you might recognize that person's voice. Okay, the first tape, Poppy Playtime Chapter 1. In the storage room, there was a tape that played, and guess where that tape took place? In that same storage room. Poppy Playtime Chapter 2. When we were in the rejected room, there was a tape that played. Guess where it took place? In that rejected room. Poppy Playtime Chapter 3. There was a tape that was played. And even though we wasn't in that same location, but that tape was played in the monorail going into play care. And we was in that monorail going to play care. Chapter 4, I'm still trying to figure out where Chapter 4 that might have been at. Like, I don't know yet, but I'm still trying to figure that out. But maybe you guys can help me out with that. But I'm gonna play this, and you guys tell me.
Doing? Oh, I swear I haven't seen a single box in its place since they started flooding the storehouse with orphanage junk.
Right.
I had to take action. Because the next day I got demoted down here to the freaking island of misfit dogs.
Hello, my name is Elliot Ludwig. What you look for?
Factory floor.
Oh, great.
Look,
You guess it. What if? Now, I could be wrong, and that is perfectly fine. This is just from my notes. This is just based off of my theory. My what if. This is just my what if theory. This is just what if. What if our main character all this time has just been Richard? I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we've been listening to his tapes. We've been listening to his journey. We've been listening to his journey from the very bottom when he was in the storage room complaining, got sent to the rejected room because his complaints were heard, and then to the top where he was recognized by someone, and not recognized by anyone else, to the top where he was promoted to the head of shipping and distribution. Distribution. Now, was he still recognized? No. Not a lot of people still recognize him. He was still in the shadows. Hint, 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 hint. Per character. Hint. So, and then what I was talking about fits well with who Richard is. He didn't get that much of recognition. He still doesn't get, even in the tapes, he didn't get that much recognition. And Rich looked out for others, that empathy, that care, that caring, you know? So what if? Now, the question is, Why wasn't he there for the Hour of Joy? Now, here's the thing. This is just me, you know. I mean, now they said, now in the voices or whatever, and like, and so forth. Now, we was told that we were supposed to be there 8/8/95. We were supposed to be there. Why wasn't we there? Now, I mean, now he could have had a mental health crisis and just had to stay home, or he wasn't feeling good and just had to stay home. But then something doesn't make any sense. Playtime Code Factory, their rules and conditions are very strict and harsh. So for someone to not show up at work it would be very rare. For someone to not show up would be very rare, wouldn't it? I mean, wouldn't that make would that make sense? I think, you know, I mean, to me, because as we all know, even from the orientation notebook, just seeing how people were being treated, wouldn't that make any sense? So he could have just not show up because he wasn't feeling well. Or maybe Richard must have been like, would have been like a target to play a big role in this, and he could have just escaped somehow. I mean, what if he just escaped in time before everything went down? Maybe someone helped him escape. Who knows? What if someone just helped him escape in time? How would he have escaped? Well, he works in distribution and shipping. I mean, they do have a warehouse where they ship the boxes of toys. Maybe slip through there. Who knows? Maybe he slipped out in time before the Hour of Joy begins. I mean, that explains why he probably didn't go to the police or report anything, because maybe he would have known what was going to happen, or who knows? Who knows? Maybe Richard knew what was going to go down. Something. That's what I'm saying. It's a big mystery. Maybe the main, who knows? This is just a what if. This is just me. What if? Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thank you. I also wanted to point this out because this is an update video. I know I created that video of who the main character was just a couple days ago. But I just wanted to create this update of the main character. So I know I already made the video about the main character, about being Richard. And maybe possible reasons of why he didn't partake in the Hour of Joy. But I also wanted to partake in why I think Richard might, not why I think, but what if Richard is the main character? Because I don't have my notes on me right now because I left it downstairs. But I do remember at the top of my head of it makes sense of why it does make sense of Richard could be a potential candidate for the main character, because in Playtime Code Factory you have of course you got the head the leaders of the department. Same thing as like in a regular factory. In a regular factory you have these departments. You have production. You have manufacturing, engineering, quality control. You also have safety and health. You also have financing. And the last thing was shipping. Yes, warehouse and shipping. No, shipping and distribution, I think. Distribution, shipping, warehouse, I think, for the departments. Which totally makes sense, because it also is a key to also Playtime Code Factory, because if you think about it, production, creating new ideas, new materials, the same as Leith Pierre and head of innovations, okay? Next one, you got quality control, which is testing out new experiments, like products, and just, testing things out, just putting them to the test. I'll say putting them to the test. Let's just say it like that. That would be Stella Graybar, which is head of play care, because she does the same thing with the children, like testing them out, like putting them in little tests to see which one would be candidates for the experiments. That would be considered quality control. Okay. Next, you have manufacturing and engineering. And that would be Eddie Ritterman, and a little bit of Dr. Holly Sawyer, but we know Dr. Holly Sawyer was the head of special projects, which technically would be like secretive, that no one shouldn't know about. But Eddie Ritterman is the head of research, which would be manufacturing and engineering. Safety and health. Now, safety and health would be more of like Gerald Lockhart, which is like an investigator who looks into incidents, ensuring like everything is like safe, looking into just incidents. And that's like something like a regular factory, like safety, like looking into like, stuff like that. And also you have financing, that would be, if I'm not correct, I think his name is Jimmy Roth, and he's chief marketing officer, which he's in charge of, the marketing. And then you have, of course, Elliot Lutway, who's the CEO, which is kind of like the factory, as a regular factory. And then you also have warehouse and shipping, distribution, which, of course, we now know that is, Richard Lovitz, which is, he's now the head of shipping and distribution at Playtime Co. So that kind of ties it all together, because maybe what if that slide could be meant for him, for all we know. I mean, who knows? What if, or I could be wrong, and the main character that we're playing of could be a whole different person, and I could be totally wrong. Like I said, this is just a what if.